Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Houston Sports Talk back in the video today. And today, the Detroit Pistons have hired their next head coach, Monty Williams, in a unbelievable deal to land Monty Williams. The amount of money Monty Williams is going to potentially make off of this hiring, they had to spend extra to land him. Monty Williams has agreed to be the next head coach for the Detroit Pistons after being fired or dismissed from the Phoenix Suns after winning Coach of the Year in 2021, going to the NBA Finals in 2021, and being an incredible leader and an incredible coach with Phoenix for the past, 3 seasons, or maybe 3 or 4 seasons, and has been incredible there, was dismissed, fired, in other words, and I think Monty Williams kind of made it clear he did not want to go to Detroit. He was not, that was something he did not have interest in. But I think Detroit was kind of not only his only option, but Detroit was willing to pay extra money just to get him. Philly hired Nick Nurse. Then Philly hired Nick Nurse. The only coach, Houston hired Ime Udoka. Houston hired Ime Udoka way before Monty was even fired. The Bucks hired Adrian Griffin. So the two teams that were interested in Monty were the Bucks and the Sixers. They have hired their head coaches. So Monty, it was either go to Detroit or wait off a season and be the top candidate to potentially be hired next season. And that was something, I don't know. I think this was probably the right move for Monty because he's getting a crap ton of money. He's going to be there for potentially, the contract is a 6-year, $78.5 million deal for Monty Williams. But it could, with incentives and other stuff, it could turn into an 8-year, $100 million deal for Monty Williams. That's how much Detroit wanted to bring him in, and I love it for Detroit. I love it. They get their leader. Didn't really have a good coach the last couple of years with Dwayne Casey. He's a good, experienced coach, but I just don't think he was really doing a good job there. I think Dwayne Casey will be much better off in management because it's looking like he's going to be moving into the front office. He's not being fully let go by the team. He's just being, I think it's kind of like what happened with, I think the Dwayne Casey with the Pistons, it's kind of like what happened with Brad Stevens in the Boston Celtics. It wasn't really like the Celtics fired Brad Stevens, because I really don't think Brad Stevens would have. They ended when his last year as head coach, they did lose to the first round of the Nets in 5 games, but he could have still been the head coach easily because he was that good of a head coach, but he would do better in the front office, and he stepped down. They hired Udoka. Saw how that turned out. Udoka's now with Houston after being fired because of what he did. But then they got a Jim and Joe Mazzulla and everything. He won Coach of the Year last year after having to step up and was amazing as amazing coach for Boston this year. So Dwayne Casey, I think he's going to be amazing for the front office, and this Monty Williams hire is going to help the Detroit players a lot. But I think this hire kind of shows that Detroit is going to be a good team next season. I really do think Detroit's going to be a good team next season. We're not talking about like a championship contender or really, I wouldn't even call them a playoff threat. But I think for a team that was one of the worst teams in the Eastern Conference, was a top 3, top 4 worst team in the NBA last year. Although I will say they had a lot of health issues. Cade Cunningham missed most of the season. I think Detroit will be a hell of a team next season. I put the number one fact. Monty Williams is their head coach next season. That's one thing. Number 2, a full, healthy Cade Cunningham. We saw how he did in his rookie season. He's a stud. Jaden Ivey showed some really good things at the end of the year. So did Jalen Duren. I love those two guys right there. They have some other nice young players as well. They have the 5th overall pick, which I think they honestly, I think they could maybe potentially trade that away to get other assets. But even if they don't, they still have other trade assets. They have Bojan Bogdanovic. They have Bojan Bogdanovic. So they have Bojan. They have Alec Burks. They have other trade. I mean, if they really wanted to, even though I think will be a young star and would be a really bad mistake to trade him, they could trade Jalen Duren. I think Killian Hayes is another trade target for the Pistons to maybe move. The Pistons have a lot of players they could maybe potentially be moving this offseason to make their roster better, and a lot of good teams might want to add in a guy like Bojan Bogdanovic. And not only that, but they have a lot of other good first round picks. And with Monty Williams coming in, I don't think this is really a rebuild. I mean, I think that it's still a rebuild, but I think it's at the point where Detroit can maybe become a play-in team next year. If healthy, their young stars take the next step forward, I think Detroit could potentially become a play-in team next year. Jaden Ivey's healthy, which he really, he didn't have any health issues in 2022, but 22-23 season, but Cade's healthy, Jaden Ivey's healthy. They make the right pick at 5. I think at pick 5, I think if he's available, Jarice Walker would be the pick. So you have a lineup of Jaden Ivey at the 1, Cade Cunningham at the 2, Jarice Walker at the 4, Jalen Duren at the 5, and then I have an idea of maybe potentially trading Bojan Bogdanovic. Let's say you trade Bojan Bogdanovic, Isaiah Stewart, who I don't know if he's a free agent or not, Alec Burks, and 3 first-round picks of the New Orleans Pelicans for Brandon Ingram. That's just one trade idea. I think they would package up Alec Burks, Bojan Bogdanovic, and multiple first-round picks to trade for somebody to make the roster better. Monty Williams, he's a coach who wants to win. I don't really see this Pistons team being bad next season. I don't see them being really good, but I think the Pistons can take the next step forward where they are a potential 10-9 seed or maybe potential 10-8 seed next season. I think could be the ceiling for the Detroit Pistons if they make the right moves in the draft and the trade market and potentially free agency. I could honestly see some players maybe be, Pistons have some good cap space, not that great, but a little bit. It's pretty solid. I could see some players wanting to come to Detroit because of some of their young players and also because of Monty Williams being there. Monty Williams is a coach that players love, and I think it could attract some players. I mean, I really think it. I really think there's a really good chance players will want to come there in free agency, and I think they're going to use their trade assets well. And honestly, if Mikal Bridges wasn't available, I would say the Pistons' number 1 trade target would be Mikal Bridges. But the Nets are for sure not going to trade him. But the relationship that Bridges and Williams have, I first thought when they hired him, I was like, is there any way the Pistons go after Bridges? But I don't think there's any shot with how the Nets have kind of made it sure that they've made it clear they're not getting rid of him. So you guys have your thoughts on the hire. I think Detroit has taken the next step in their rebuild with hiring Monty Williams. They have trade assets. They have young guys like Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, Jalen Duren, and the 5th overall pick, who I think most likely, if available, which should be available, will draft Jarice Walker from Houston. And so they have those young guys. They have Monty Williams to coach that young core. We saw how good he was with that young core in Phoenix. When he started off in there, guys like Cameron Johnson and Mikal Bridges were pretty young. So even DeAndre Ayton was pretty young. So when he went there, their roster was pretty young, and we saw him do really good with that. And I think he'll be really good in with Detroit, and he's getting a lot of money. I think it's a great hire for Detroit. You guys have your thoughts. That's the video if you guys enjoyed, and peace out.